Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, a podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your host, Marcus Kusi, and in today's episode, I'll be sharing the first year marriage story of Jackie and Stephana Bledsoe. They've been married for more than 13 years and have 3 beautiful kids, and they also live in Indiana. Jackie is a speaker, a writer, and the host of the 7 Rings of Marriage show. This show helps couples to build healthy and lasting marriages. His beautiful wife, Stephana, is also the director of Homeschool Co-op in Indiana. So Jackie and Stephana, can you guys please tell us who you are, what you do, and how you guys met and when you decided to get married?
Definitely. First, just want to say thank you for having us on the show. We appreciate being asked to chat with you.
You're welcome.
My pleasure. We met in high school, actually. We're 2 years apart. I was a senior. She was a sophomore, and we were introduced by a mutual friend of ours.
It's kind of funny because our story has, after 13 years, has finally become the same story.
She's finally coming around and admitting the way it really happened.
So you met in high school through a friend, and when did you guys decide you were going to be together, spend your life together as a married couple?
Well, after we were 2 years apart, we met my senior year just before I graduated. So I left and went to school in another state. I went to school in South Carolina. And then when I graduated from college, I moved to Indianapolis, which was about an hour from our hometown. And when I moved here, I knew 2 people. One is a friend of mine, good friend of mine that I played basketball and grew up with together at home. And then the other was Stephana. And the mutual friend that introduced us, we actually both kept in contact with when I was at school. And it just so happened that those 2 were the only people I knew in the city. She lived like 5 minutes away from me, and we connected from there and started out just as a friendship. And then over time, it graduated to more.
Oh, that's all. So, Stephana, what was your reaction when Jackie was like, I want to marry you, I want to put a ring on your hand so that no other man can propose to you?
That's a great question. I don't think I've been asked that before. I think that I was unsure about the direction of our relationship because we dated off and on for quite a while before we really became exclusive. So I think my initial thought was, is this real?
Like, is he serious?
Wow, that's pretty exciting. I know. With a lot of women out there, the first time that your boyfriend or whoever you've been with proposes to you, it's a shock, and at the same time, it's an excitement because this is something I've been looking forward to probably for the past 10 or 20 years or how old, whatever age that you are. So it's something that I cannot relate to because I'm a guy, but my wife always tells me what she felt. The way she felt when I proposed to her. So it's something I like to ask couples, especially the wives, so that they can share what their experience is like to our listeners.
It's a great question. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. After you guys got married in the first year, during your first year, is there any particular word or anything that you can use to sum up your first year, just to give it a better description about everything that happened during that year?
I would say eye-opening.
Eye-opening. This is the
Definitely.
first time. This is the first time I'm hearing this. So, can you please expound a little bit on it for us?
Definitely, yeah. Our first year of marriage was very, very challenging. Mm-hmm. So, the first year of marriage, it was just by God's grace that we even made it past that first year of marriage. It was really, really tough. One of the things is we came, our daughter, who is now 14 years old, she was born before we got married. So we came into not just this new relationship, this new committed relationship of marriage, but we also came in with a 10-month-old baby. So you lump all those together to two people who, we had a history. We knew each other since we were high school. But like she said, things were off and on and things like that. So it was tough. And just trying to figure it out, live together, coexist. Well, we call part of the 7 rings of marriage discovering. We were discovering different things about each other and one another. And some of the stuff, we just have to be honest, we didn't like. We didn't know before and we didn't like. So it was rough. Very, very rough.
Yeah, I can see that because without our first year also, it wasn't easy because, like you get married and you think you know everything. But once you start living actually together and doing things together, it kind of opens your eyes to different things that you never knew existed. And that is something that I think our listeners are going to learn a lot from you guys as we go through this conversation. With your first year, did you guys, I know you had a baby. Well, when you got married, before you got married, you had a baby. How did the baby play in the adjustments that you guys had to go through during that first year? Because I know with having a baby, you have to first think about the baby and also think about your marriage. On top of that, think about yourselves. How did you guys adjust to everything that was going on with the baby, your careers, and living together as a newlywed?
I think that we, in some ways, our daughter was a big part of our motivation for making it in the early stages. We both wanted the best for her. We wanted to be the best parents that we could be for her. We wanted the family relationship to stay secure for her. So I think that we did everything that we could, maybe not all completely planned, but we did everything that we could to make it as positive as it could be for our daughter.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, and it's just the natural progression of things when you have a baby. So she kind of dominated the things that we did. She kind of dominated our focus, our attention, and all those things, which added to the challenges that we had in that first year of marriage, because we could not focus like most couples do when they come into marriage with just themselves on each other. So we were learning each other and learning to exist with each other, but there was a little life that needed our attention that frequently pulled us from the attention of one another.
Okay, so Jackie, when after you guys got married, like, was there any particular adjustment that you had to make personally to adjust to being a dad and being a husband?
Oh yeah, definitely. Up until that point, it was really just about me. So selfishness, even though I probably wouldn't admit it and didn't know it. But what I did was really just focus on my needs and not really the needs of other people. So the minute I decided to get married and when we had our daughter, then that changed. In marriage, by being a husband and being a father, I had to learn to be selfless and then also focus on their needs more than my needs, which was challenging. And it's, as people in general, we're kind of naturally like that. We take care of ourselves and do for ourselves. So trying to adjust to, a wife who needed things from me as her husband, and then, a newborn baby who needed things from me as her father, was a big adjustment. And that was the biggest thing that I could see, is just trying to go from selfish to selfless. And I would say I didn't do a great job of it, and I probably still deal with it now. But it's not the way it was when we first got married.
Oh, okay. What about you, Stephana?
I think the same thing. It was recognizing things in myself that I needed to change in order for the relationship to work smoothly. And a lot of that was selfishness as well. Just, I was an only child. So there are still lots of areas that I struggle with in that area. So not just being a wife, but being a mother. And I have this baby that I'm the primary provider of nurturing to. It was a massive challenge. I think each aspect of it was a lot in itself, and to have all of it together was quite a bit.
Yeah, I can definitely relate with that, because even though with our marriage in the first year we didn't have kids, after we had our daughter, like, she became our focus, because she's a new life. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know what to do. So our attention geared towards her initially, and then later on we realized we have to also think about our marriage and try to put our marriage first, because if our marriage is first, we'll be able to be in a better position to help her progress in the initial stages of life that she has. So I can definitely relate with that. And also, she's been introduced to. So with you're going to say something?
No, I was just saying that's right.
Yeah. With having a baby, you're married, you're going through all these adjustments, like thinking from me to we. When it came to your financial situations, did you guys combine your finances? Did you guys decide to have different bank accounts, or what did you guys actually do? Because I know with babies comes a lot of responsibilities, especially financially. So what did you guys do?
Yeah, we did. We got a joint account. We combined our finances, and tried to run our finances from a perspective of one, that we were one. So what was mine was hers, and what was hers was mine. And part of that reason is because what we say was a big part of our marriage being where it is now, and even just getting past that first year, was that we took at our church, we signed up for a marriage class. And in that marriage class, and we also signed up for a financial class, I think later, but that marriage class, it taught that principle of just becoming one, of leaving and cleaving and becoming one. And that was the saving grace of our marriage. And that's what led us to take those steps. And once we received those principles, we really didn't look back. We were like, this is the way that it is best for our marriage to make it, to thrive. And maybe early on we questioned it going into it, but once we said we were into it, we rolled that. We went with it. So I suggest couples always to bring their finances together. You know, if they have a separate account, but they still have their master account together, you got to function as one in marriage.
That's very, very true. I totally agree with that. It's very, very beneficial and improves your marriage in many ways. With your first year of marriage, whilst you guys were married, I know you guys worked through changing your mindset from being selfish to being selfless. Whilst you guys were going through that transition or that adjustments, did you guys have any conflict or any difficult issues arise that you had to resolve? And how did you guys work to resolve it?
One of the things that I remember being a really difficult and touchy area was intimacy in sex. We didn't have the same desire or may not have matched up at the same time. So that created a lot of conflict. I think going into the marriage, our ideals on what it would be like maybe were skewed. Maybe Jackie thought it'll be nonstop, and I thought
that would be good.
And I thought it would be a little less frequent, and so that was a bit combustible at times.
Wow. That's really exciting. Jackie, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, I think that is kind of right the way she said it. Two words that stuck out when she first started out. She said intimacy, and then she later on followed up with sex. So hopefully that don't get us in trouble on iTunes. But I think when we look at it from a husband-wife perspective, the wife is looking for that intimacy, which is a little just a real deep connection, much deeper than just the physical. It's the emotional, the mental as well. So that's what she was looking for. And me, with sex, was more the physical. And even being that we had a child before marriage means that we had sex before marriage, then those times as the husband, you're expecting it to be like that. And the wife is still looking for something deeper than that. Because I'm sure that I was probably more romantic, probably more intimate during those times when we were in the dating stage. And then after you get married, you kind of like, well, we're here. All that stuff doesn't need to happen, but it does need to happen. And she was expecting it, wasn't receiving it. I was expecting more of what the end result wasn't receiving it. So there was the conflict.
From what you guys are saying, it seems you all agree with me that men and women communicate differently and we see things differently. So how did you guys sit down together as two different people to resolve this issue that you had or this conflict that you had?
A lot of it, I think, came from that very first marriage class that we had, and just being around older, wiser women who had been married longer, that could just share real life stuff and just, explain it in a way that a woman needs to hear it. And so once I came to grips with it's not just my husband, so that therefore it's not just me dealing with this, that gave me some reprieve and like I'm not alone in this. And also, okay, so how do we navigate through this? How do we not end our marriage over this conflict? So that was the marriage class and some of the marriage retreats that we went to. That was seemed to be a pretty common topic.
Yeah, I would agree. That marriage class was we referred to it a couple times already, but it was so, like I said, the saving grace of our marriage. Not only just the class, which then introduced us to an opportunity to go on a marriage retreat, which was we didn't even know things like that existed before that, but we met and connected with some other couples there that we then later on and grew a relationship with and grew into a small group of couples that got together on a regular basis that were around the same age, same years married as we were. And we just really got to connect, and seeing that they were dealing with some of the same things, including the intimacy, sex issues, and other areas. The husband and I could relate, the wives and her could relate. So that really helped us to get over it, because I think one thing in marriage, when you get into challenging situations, you think it's just you. You feel isolated. You don't want to share. Sometimes you may be embarrassed to share. But then when you get those relationships, you can share that and realize, man, I'm not the only one. They're dealing with it. We're dealing with it. So it's not abnormal. We're not weird. This is some of the things that you face when you get married.
That's very, very true. So with all the resources that you guys had available to you during your first year and the programs that you went through, what do you want to share with us, one particular program or resource or anything that really had a really big impact on your marriage? I don't know whether you guys want to share the marriage class that you guys took so that our listeners can know what that class is, and if they are interested in it, they can probably look online or see if those classes are available in their local communities.
Yeah, definitely. The marriage class that we took was at our church, and it was taught by a pastor and his wife that we connected with. But what they taught from a book called A Marriage Without Regrets. And the author of that book is Kay Arthur, Kayarthur. She was the author of that book, and that was what was basically the curriculum of that class. So that was one of the first resources, the first that opened our eyes and taught us how God designed marriage, and believing that if we follow those principles, that our marriage could be thriving, our marriage could be lasting and healthy as well, and it could ultimately be without regret. So that was a big one. And I think after that, it was really just those connections and it wasn't just one thing. It was we embraced counseling. We went to counseling early because we were having problems, and then we realized that was good for us. So now we advocated for couples to not just go to counseling when they're on the ropes, but when they're throughout their marriage. We also connected again with our small group with other couples that were going through similar things as us, and we continue to dig as many resources as we possibly could, which has turned our hearts to now turn and do the same thing for others, which is why we've created the 7 Rings of Marriage and things like that. So that first resource, though, for that class was A Marriage Without Regrets by Kay Arthur. And then 2 more you mentioned 2 earlier.
The Power of a Praying Wife and The Power of a Praying Husband. I think that did a great thing for our hearts. There's something about the power of prayer and praying for your spouse that changes your own heart and your own outlook on things.
I definitely will be checking out these resources that you've both mentioned. I think there's a lot of things that I can also learn and implement them into our marriage to see how best they can help us. Because with marriage, it's not like you get married, you learn ABC, and that's it. You always have to keep learning so that you can improve yourself and improve your marriage. So your marriage will always be fresh and rejuvenated.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I know with the first years, there were exciting moments, like something that really sparks up. Whenever they look back into their first year, they always laugh together. For our case, it was us fighting over, where to put the shoelace or who puts the toilet seats down or who lifts it up. We had to fight those. And when we look back, those are some of the funniest moments that we had. With your marriage, what would you think, would you choose to be the funniest or exciting moment that when you look back to, you both sit down and laugh?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. We couldn't pinpoint. Maybe it's just because we're so old now and we just can't remember. But I think we both would agree that most of our funniest moments probably involved our daughter. Now, as far as pulling a specific one out, can't think of one, and probably most of the exciting moments as well. Just as you were talking, I got to thinking about where we were, and I'm not sure even if this might have been a tail end of our first year of marriage, but we used to take these walks down our street at the apartment that we lived in, and there was a church down at the end of the street, and our daughter had this imaginary friend that lived at the church. And so that imaginary friend became as real to us as it was to her because we just used to talk about it. So it's like we were going down the block. What was it? Tipo was the name of the imaginary friend. We still remember 13 years later, 14 years later, what the name of that imaginary friend was. So that was one thing. I do remember those walks that we did, and it was just her and us at that time. So we did enjoy those. That was probably one of the. I guess it was funny because we, as grown parents, were playing into it and pretty much accepted it just as real as she did.
Wow, that is really exciting. I'm glad you guys are still able to pull out one from the books and bring it out to share with us, because I know everybody listening will be excited to listen to it and know that this is what you guys had and this is what you went through, because a lot of people will be able to relate with it. Some people won't be able to relate with an imaginary friend, but others will be able to. Others will definitely be able to relate to it. Yeah. So I know you've been married for over 10 years. I know with marriage, being married for more than 10 years, it's a big achievement. With your marriage, what do you think is something that you guys do together to grow together, so that as you are growing older in your age and in everything that you are doing, you still stay connected and you don't grow apart?
In the last year, is it a year, 2 years? We've decided that an annual marriage retreat is a must for us. So we look forward to that, and we've decided on one that is just a little bit before our anniversary. So we get to go and work on our marriage and be around like-minded couples prior to our actual anniversary. So it doesn't take away from the celebration, but it's kind of the kickoff of our anniversary. And I think that helps us to always be working on our marriage and learning and growing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And she mentioned it comes right before our anniversary, like a couple weeks before that. But it just seems, at least the last couple of years, that retreat has been so timely. Like, not just getting away and being away together, getting away from kids is just huge. Getting away from work, it always seems like right at that time we're kind of at the end of our rope, and we need that. So I don't know what it is about that timing, but that has been a big one. But I would also add that date nights. We were talking maybe about a month ago, and our goal was to have a weekly date night, no matter what, big or small, to have a weekly date night. And there was a time period in our marriage that we probably didn't date. It wasn't just months, but it was probably a couple of years where we really didn't go on a date. We didn't even realize it. Just came into marriage with a child, had another child 4 or 5 years later, and then it was all about the kids and really didn't pour into us. But recently, and I think we started this last year, we got in a good string and got off of it. And then this year we've been back to dating weekly. And we think that has been phenomenal in our relationship, because with those date nights, if you think about it, are the things that get you, that's what gets you married. You develop that intimacy, you get that excitement in the relationship, you begin to know each other. And a lot of couples we found suffer that they don't have date nights. So they're missing that in their relationship. Well, we've kind of brought that back in our relationship, and I think it has been something that has helped us to connect. And I think that's going to help us when the kids are gone to not look at each other like, "Who are you?" Because we have spent that time doing that. So we really think that the retreat and then those consistent date nights where there's and that's what we're working towards now. We're trying to make sure all of our schedule is cleared out and we don't put anything on it, which we haven't done that always in the past, but that is protected. That is sacred ground. Stuff gets canceled to make our date night. That's the goal that we're working towards, and we think it's going to keep us from having those moments later on in marriage.
That's really fantastic. For us, we haven't gotten to the point that we have the date night every week, but we try to do it every single month. Even though we have a little baby on the way, we try to make sure at least once a month we put it on the calendar and try to spend time together, just I and my wife, me and Ashley, just to be able to connect and make sure we are growing together as a couple to be able to progress in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So before we end the show today, I'm really thankful that you guys were able to make it. But I wanted to ask you one more question that I think every newlywed will love to know. What is the one lesson or advice that you guys wish you knew before you got married or during the first year that you were married?
I think the first lesson is that, and we came into marriage brand new, young kids. I feel like we wish we would have known about premarital counseling. That was something that when we talk in the 7 rings, we talk about the engagement ring, and that's the foundation. That's where you're setting the foundation of your marriage. Once you say, yes, this is the person, we're setting this proper foundation so that our marriage can stand strong and not fall. Well, we didn't get that premarital counseling. Fortunately, the class that we took in our that helped us was within that first year of marriage, which kind of served as our premarital counseling that helped us to kind of build that foundation. But I think couples can, by taking premarital counseling, can learn so much about each other, set so many different guides and boundaries and safeguards for their marriage, and just create a solid foundation to build off of. That is very hard to do in the midst of marriage once you're already there. We try to do it with a child and brand new coming together like we were. I don't advise anybody to do that. But premarital counseling, some sort of counseling, whether it's from a pastor, whether it's from someone else that has been there and experienced that, you have to get that to help set that foundation so that way you have something to build off of.
Yeah. Stephana, is there anything that you want to add to it?
I think I agree completely. And the only other thing I would add is to surround yourself with other like-minded couples that will be in the trenches with you, that you can be in the trenches with them, that you can encourage and be prayerful with one another. That was a huge piece for us too.
That's really fantastic. I really look forward to this question, to listen to the various responses and advice that our guests are able to deliver to our audience. And I know newlyweds are going to implement the lessons and the advice that you guys have given today in their marriage so that they were able to have the lasting marriage that they want. Because I know anybody who gets married wants to have a lasting marriage. They don't want to get married and get a divorce. But with the advice that you guys have given us today and the stories that you've shared from your first year of marriage, newlyweds will be able to build a really good foundation for their marriage also.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's a blessing. I hope it helps to resurrect some great marriages and helps to set the path that set them on the right path to a great marriage.
Yeah. So before we leave today, I want you guys to share with us how best our listeners can connect with you. I know, Jackie, your 7 Rings of Marriage show is about to be released. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what our listeners can expect from it? Some of them might be interested in knowing more about it before it even launches.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The 7 Rings of Marriage is actually something Stephana and I sat down and we just kind of looked at our marriage from where we were when we first got started to where we are today. And as we did that, I wrote about it, and so many people could relate to it. So what we found out was that many couples, especially those couples that get to that lasting and fulfilling stage, go through all 7 rings of marriage. So I'll quickly give them to you. The 7 rings of marriage are the engagement ring, the marriage ring, the discovering, the persevering, the restoring, the prospering, and the mentoring. And so it's basically each one represents some stage that you go through in marriage. And what we're doing is the project is threefold. The first is we are launching a web show where we will sit down and interview other couples who have experienced one or all of the 7 rings and hear their story and share that so it can benefit the readers and listeners of that come to my site. And the second stage is we're going to create a full marriage curriculum that takes you from engagement ring all the way to mentoring, where basically you are turning around and able to give back and share your lessons with other couples or even your children as they're getting old and maybe considering getting married one day. And then the third phase of it is we're writing a book about it all. So we want to share our story, everybody else's story, what we were learning and the feedback that we're getting from the couples that we're helping through the curriculum. So that is something that they can jump on. And if they want to go check that out, they just need to go to my website, JackieBledsoe.com/7 rings. And that's the number 7 followed by RINGS.
Okay. And apart from this resource, how best can our listeners connect with you guys?
Yeah, definitely go to my site, JackieBledsoe.com, and I'll set up I'm going to set up some free resources for your listeners. And to access it, they just need to go to JackieBledsoe.com/first year, and that's spelled out FIRSTYEAR. And I'll have a date night resource, and we'll see if we can come up with some other resources to go on there for them to download and hopefully to help their marriages.
Thank you, Jackie and Stephana, for sharing your experience with us today. I'm really thankful that you guys took some time out of your busy schedule with 3 kids and, working full time, doing everything here and there to share your first year marriage story and the lessons that you learned with our listeners. I know they're going to apply it in their lives and it will be able to help them build a really good foundation to be able to grow their marriage and strengthen their marriage as they go on this journey called marriage together.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us.
It is our pleasure. We are humbled every time we get someone ask us to share our story with them.
Okay. I'm really thankful too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.